Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. And on this week's show, we are going to recap Honor Submission Challenge, and we are going to recap GrappleFest 16. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, to my co-host,
Miranda.
Hey, Miranda.
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Had a nice little vacation. I am back. We did not cover GrappleFest and Honor Submission Challenge last week because that show was recorded prior to those events happening. We were able to cover the UFC Invitational. That's been a lot of fun. We have some more information that's come out from that. Looks like the Gordon and Nikki Rod match is not going to happen.
Who expected that to
No one expected it to happen, but there's been drama, and now that's all died down. So we get to cover GrappleFest, and we get to cover Honor Submission Challenge. Some fun matchups happened on there. Before we get into that, what's up?
No, I don't know.
Before we get into that, let's talk a little bit of news. We have a couple of matches that got announced. I'm springing this. We didn't talk about this on the pre-show at all.
We also have Cole Abate.
Cole Abate got his black belt. Cole Abate. You don't know who Cole Abate is, you should.
He got his brown belt at Euros.
He got his brown belt at Euros. He is the...
And then he got his black belt at
He was
Asians.
a 15-year-old blue belt, technically. Trials winner from AOJ. He won the East Coast Trials, beat Krikorian in the finals there, looked astonishing. He then went to ADCC, looked okay at ADCC, but it's, again, a step up.
Yeah.
He then got his purple belt. He then got his brown belt earlier this year after Euros.
Yeah.
And then he now recently...
at Euros. I think
at Euros, yeah.
I think he on the podium he got his black belt.
Instead of going to
his brown belt.
American Nationals this weekend, he went over to the Asian Open, the Asian Championships. Which AOJ likes to bring guys over for those. He won that.
They had like their A team there.
Yeah, they had other
people at
big hitters there.
Yeah.
So he wins that in pretty impressive fashion. I was really impressed with his performance. And then he got his black belt on the mat there, which I thought was really cool. It wasn't at the podium. It was just like, he just pulled it out.
Yeah, but it fucked him for absolute because he can't do absolute.
Oh no!
He couldn't do absolute.
But he's probably gonna do absolute anyway because he's like a 55er. Because he was lightweight.
Because Tynan doesn't do absolute either.
And he's middleweight.
When I think about it.
So. That's great. Again, I was so excited about this because as soon as I thought he was doing lightweight, which for IBJJF is like 163, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that with the gi. It's right around there. And now he's a black belt.
I know the women's numbers.
I am so excited for all of the potential matchups at those weights.
Yeah,
because
be fun.
Now he's a black belt. Now we're going to see him in black belt majors. I think he's going to be one of the guys that does the gi, obviously going to do the no-gi stuff, but it's still going to stay in the gi, and he's going to do that like multi-sport guy where you're in all the big no-gi stuff, you're in all the big gi stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're going to see. I'm curious to see if he's going to do World Pro or not, which is UAE-JJF, now AJP's big world event. We haven't covered them a ton in the last couple of years because we've had some problems finding their footage in like a timely manner for when it happens, but he may do that.
Is he on the Mo team for
the Moldolfo team for AIGA? Let me look it up.
I thought he was.
We're in a quick stall for time.
I know.
I think he's on that team.
I thought he was on that team too.
Do we know when that event is?
It's next month, I believe, or the month after, because I remember looking at it to see when it was, and it was like far enough away that I didn't have to think about it. So the next event is...
He just joined the Moldolfo team.
Yeah, August 19th, 20th.
Yeah, and so he's on that team. And so that team looks absolutely stacked for AIGA. We have Taliesin Suarez. We have Diogo Hayes, who we're going to talk about today. Fabricio Andre, who hopefully isn't injured. We're going to see him on that. Talk about him.
Yeah.
Gabriel Souza, who we'll also talk about today. Dante Leone, Isaac Michel, Giancarlo Bodoni, and John Hansen is on that team.
Yeah.
We talked about that team for AIGA a couple of weeks ago and basically went, no one's going to beat that team. I'm curious who Abate is going to replace on that team. I assume he would actually replace Fabricio Andre on that team based on the weight.
Yeah, I don't know how that all works. I don't know.
So I'm super excited for it. That'll be great. Cole Abate, been a phenomenal grappler to watch the past couple of years. We've watched him. He was one of the few people we've ever covered like as a kid, technically, or like even when he was younger.
Well, because
the child
he was
belts.
winning everything as a kid.
Yeah, and now he's black belt.
Yeah, and he's gonna grow into his man strength.
Which I can't. Looks his match with Damien Anderson.
He's jacked now. He's gonna put some.
He's probably gonna end his career at 170 something.
Yeah,
wouldn't surprise me at all. So it was funny. His match with Damien Anderson is actually a match I go back and watch occasionally because I really love whenever we cover either one of those guys. That's actually one of the matches I'll go back and like piece through again just to see that match was a really great showcase of a lot of their skills and how they handle kind of complex situations. For some reason, that's the one I always choose to go back in. And so because Abate got his black belt this week, and we're going to cover Damian Anderson on GrappleFest, I recently went back and kind of pieced through that match again. So excited for Abate. At 165, there are a ton of really exciting guys for him to go against. He's now probably going to end his career at 77 kilos, would be my guess.
Yeah,
but he may be able to make
unless he finds the juice.
Maybe.
If he finds the juice, he might get bigger than that.
He might get bigger than that. I think he's probably not going to go down to 66 kilos again. I would guess that he's probably.
I don't think he can get down to. I mean, he's going to get to the point where it's not unless he like pulls a.
Ethan Krellinston.
Who like somehow got shredded as fuck
and then
made
the weight.
Yeah,
because I think they talked about Abate after East Coast Trials, and we discussed that at East Coast Trials because he was 15 at the time, I think.
Yeah, and we were like, can he make the weight?
Because that was the first trials for ADCC, and then we had West Coast Trials, and then we had the World Championships, and that was a bit of an abbreviated trial cycle because of the pandemic. But we were curious even then how much he would struggle to make the weight for ADCC. We knew he would make it.
It's day before, so I mean.
No, it's day of for World Championships.
Oh, it's day of.
And it's each day.
Oh, it's each day. Yeah.
So
fuck, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. So I think that we most likely won't see him back at 66 again, but he's in that weird tweener weight class for the men. So it'll be exciting. We'll talk. Well, again, many more to come. Congrats for Cole Abate. Really cool to see him move into the black belt ranks, and cannot wait for those matchups.
Yeah, and the Asian Championships, the AOJ team that went kind of cleaned house.
Yeah, who else was out there?
Well.
Remember who else was out there?
Masa, I can never say her first name.
Maisa
Bastos was there. She won both of her divisions.
Yep.
Dalper was there. He won his divisions. He told some people. I mean, I was watching his matches, and it was like
tooled.
Like he.
I think he told some people.
No,
what did he tell him?
He like tooled some people.
Yeah. After that Jansen Gomez match,
I know. I think he kind of needed a little push.
Mm-hmm.
And then who else? They took everybody that was like big out there.
So we have a new announcement for Who's Number One coming up on August 10th. That main event is Margali versus Duarte. We'll talk about that when we get closer to preview it. We have Felipe Pena versus Haisam Rita. That'll be another fun match.
They also put out the undercard.
Yeah, but so in this match we have Nikki Ryan versus Renee Souza. I thought it was Nikki Ryan and Dante Leon. Is that incorrect? Am I wrong about that now?
I don't know, because I saw Renee Souza like 2 days ago, and I didn't know that he was going against Nikki Ryan, or I would have said something to him about it.
For some reason, I thought that Dante Leon got announced for that matchup. Dante Leon's going against Ethan Krellinston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Nikki Ryan, it would be the first time we'll see him back since ADCC, I think. That'll be an exciting matchup. And Ethan Krellinston versus Dante Leon, that got announced, I think, after we recorded last week's show. Yeah. I am so excited for this card and for that Krellinston and Dante Leon matchup, because Krellinston is probably now a more normal weight for him, not making that cut for ADCC, and Dante has moved down from welterweight at 85 to 55.
Truthfully, this weekend we have a really nice match, if I can find it somewhere, which I might have to just buy the card. That Pittsburgh thing that's happening.
Stout?
And it's freaking PJ Barch versus Dante Leon.
I'm going to buy that card.
That's the main event.
Okay.
And then the undercard,
in our pre-show, did you just forget this happened?
Yeah, I just completely forgot.
We're going to preview that at the end of the show.
We're going to preview
that. On Stout Fight.
Clay Maynard is doing a MMA or a grappling match.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know.
Gray Maynard?
Or Gray.
Clay Guida or Gray Maynard?
Gray Maynard. Gray
Maynard.
Yeah.
We also on the card have Ben Eddy versus Pedro Henrique.
These are
and Helena Cravar versus I forget Wolski's first name. And then we have Achilles Rocha versus Adam Benchloff. I can never get his last name.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. That's the undercard. They just announced that today, too.
That whole card is going to be phenomenal. I can't wait for that. Do we have any other matchups that I've forgotten about?
No, I think that's it.
Week?
Right. I think that's it.
So that does it for news and matchup announcements. Let's move into...
do we want to talk about American Nationals or no? Briefly?
Let's go for it.
American Nationals. We continued the Thymara Silva and Elizabeth Clay rivalry. They had, what was it, Brazilian Nationals? There was that situation where Elizabeth won and then she left and then she came back and all that bullshit.
So what happened basically in the Brazilian Nationals was Elizabeth Clay was announced as the winner on the mat. Some sort of conversation happened, and then it was redacted, and then Tamara was given the victory, and it was very confusing to figure out exactly what had happened. But it seemed like something improper had happened. But from an outside perspective, it was very weird. But they have now rematched again at American Nationals.
And in the first match, there was another weird event that happened between the two of them, in which Elizabeth Clay loses.
Okay.
And then they go into the open class, and then Elizabeth Clay wins. So now they are 2 for 2. They're 2-2.
I love that rivalry. I love
so there is developing a rivalry between the two of them, which is kind of fun.
That's exciting. Any and
then Elder
American
Cruz.
Nationals?
Elder Cruz won both his division and absolute.
Was Elder Cruz in the division with Francisco Lowe and the other gentleman?
He was supposed to go against whoever won that match, and then they both got DQ'd, so he went against no one. And the guy that he had went against got second place, and they DQ'd the two of them out completely.
Okay, yeah, so Francisco Lowe and I forget the other guy. What was his name?
Give me a second.
I have his name.
Pause for time. Explain the situation.
So basically what happened is in the semifinals match, Francisco Lowe and his opponent, who we're going to get his name in a second here, very heavy collar tie in kind of a club. IBJJF.
Francisco de Assis No, that's his name.
That's his name.
Helton
Jose Silva.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So Helton clubs Lowe.
Yeah.
And in IBJJF, it's kind of like wrestling. You can't just open hand club someone. You have to actually use it to pull the head down.
Yeah,
and he hits him, and Francisco Lowe goes, okay, and hits him back, and then
hits him like multiple times back in a row. He like bitch slaps him like 3 times before they go both.
And the referee brings him back to the center, DQs them both, and everyone kind of goes, that makes sense.
You see him DQ the first guy, and then you see Francisco Lowe have a smile on his face, and then you see him, then he DQs Francisco Lowe, and then he's like, whatever. And
Francisco Lowe goes, that's warranted. and both guys, like, I think it's very reasonable in IBJJF in that rule set.
But the winner of that would have won against Elder Cruz.
Yeah. So Elder Cruz essentially gets a walkover victory in the finals at American Nationals.
And then
he
the guy that he won against gets second place because no one's there.
If you double DQ in a quarter or in a semi, then everyone moves on.
But then he also won his division, and he won against David Garmo, Adam Bradley, and Carlos Henrique.
Yeah, that was a stacked division.
Yeah. And Josh Cisneros came and won his division too.
Yeah, there was a highlight of Cisneros, and he looked good again.
Yeah, these were the
ones. I
always
love watching Cisneros.
Well, didn't he have a leg injury or a knee injury?
So he had a knee injury at this event?
No, before.
Yeah, at
that he just came back from recently.
I forget.
So
Cisneros has had a couple of knee injuries, and I forget which.
Because he was coming back from an injury. That's what I've heard. Or that's what I gathered from watching everything.
He is recovered now, and he looked kind of in the form that we've seen him.
Well, because he's a very active, active person when he competes. So when those people get hurt, you always wonder if they're going to be able to come back with the speed.
Especially as Cisneros gets a little older, and you kind of always are questioning when someone has an injury like that. How does it affect their game? And their game has such reliance on being mobile and being quick.
We'll discuss this a little bit later in our submission challenge.
Yeah, leg injuries.
Leg injuries.
All right. So, anything else on American Nationals?
No, that's it.
All right. Now, do you want to move into... want to do honor first?
Sure.
Okay, so let's move into honor submission challenge. This one was fun. It was on Flow.
It's in Sardinia, Italy.
Yeah,
it was in Italian for like when they were announcing shit, and I had no idea what they were saying.
And then you hear someone's name, Kokorian. I was like, I know Kokorian.
Yeah.
And it's like something Diogo Hayes.
And it was kind of fun listening to the announcers because they had like the one was Australian and one was Italian, and so they both had accents as they were. And it was pretty.
I like Honor. We've covered Honor. It's the second event that we've covered that they've done.
Their next event is in the really Middle East, the rich place.
Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, no.
Dubai.
Their next event's in Dubai.
That'll be exciting. So yeah, Honor. They usually couple their events with like a big seminar series and a kind of a camp. So I like to bring great guys out. Where do you want to start with this one?
Where do you want to start?
Let's do the main card first. Let's do Diego Hayes and Jack Sear.
Okay.
This is so Diogo. I will eventually get his name. Diogo Hayes.
Just call him Baby Shark.
Baby Shark takes a decision victory over Jack Sear, and Jack Sear impressed the fuck out of me here, especially early in this match. Early in this match, there was the first
minute,
15 seconds of the match or 20 seconds of the match. Jack Sear enters into kind of like a single leg X, almost like a 50-50.
Yeah.
And then gets Baby Shark's leg super high up on his body and then starts going for just a traditional 50-50 outside heel hook. Baby Shark does a great job, steps around, and beautiful step around, like steps all the way over the head, and then ends up and it's a position we don't see a ton, where from that 50-50 position, once you've stepped that over and the leg comes up, if you double hand it, and Dean Lister used to do this a lot.
Yeah.
And Dean Lister used to do it when the leg was between the legs. When your leg was between and under his legs.
So like an Aoki?
Not really. You can lift up at their heel and bring it up. And Baby Shark starts to do this because essentially the outside of the knee is still trapped.
Yeah.
And you can force and leverage against that and cause like a really, really tight heel hook because you're in 50-50 and you've stepped all the way through that 50-50 to now having you as the top player have a better 50-50 shot than the bottom player because you've kind of freed your leg down. And Baby Shark immediately starts crunching this heel hook. And to Jack Sear's credit, Jack Sear goes, nope, this is bad. Bails out, gets out of the position completely, and then essentially just resets it. But this was the first 30 seconds of the match.
Yeah.
And I was just really impressed with immediately Jack Sear's ability to get onto this heel hook.
And his facial expression does not change.
No.
He just has this like fuck you look on his face, and he just doesn't change it.
But again, I kind of like matches like this because it gives us a chance to see a guy in Jack Sear that we haven't covered in a while and really haven't got a chance to talk about much on the show.
Is Jonathan Gracie coaching him, or is he just chilling?
It looks like Hokage's there. It looks like everyone's just kind of chilling that side.
Everybody's just chilling that side.
Yeah, a lot of the guys were just chilling on the outside of that mat there.
I was just curious. Sorry, we were watching it as we talk about it.
But I was really impressed with Jack Sear for his ability to throw up consistent offense. He stopped a lot of Baby Shark's forward momentum in the beginning of the match, and then Baby Shark seemed to have kind of figured out the pacing and then immediately switched to either a body lock pass, and he hit that a couple of times, and he would kind of hop over and pass the guard. And then we were talking in the pre-show about this, and I'm not sure if you have a name for it. It is not a Toriando pass, but it is.
I don't know. I've learned that as the Toriando pass.
So it's the no-gi pass that everyone does nowadays. It is where you either put your hands on the knees, like you're going to do a Toriando, or you put your hands on the lower ankles, and you step around, and then you dive your head forward and jump and kind of turn around almost and end up in north-south. And it is one of the primary ways that we see people pass in no-gi
It's not
now.
a bullfighter, because a bullfighter
That's just the English translation for Toriando. But
I don't know. That's what I was taught.
It's like a modified Toriando, but I wonder if there's an actual name for this pass, because the Toriando traditionally is done at the knees, and it is more of you stepping around.
Yeah, and it's
with like the matador and the bullfighter of coming to the side.
This is like I take my face and I put my face to your hip, and I hope
or your chest,
and I hope the rest of my body follows
or clears. Yeah, basically, I'm like diving over you. I'm like I'm pushing your legs down, and I'm turning you like I'm doing a Toriando. Yeah. But I am leading with my face and head.
I think I've always called it dive bomber, because I feel like
maybe that's the name.
I always get kneed in the face whenever I do that pass.
Yeah.
And I get kneed in the face a lot when I do that pass, but it works very well.
It's a very effective pass. You end up in north-south, so a lot of the guys, especially in the lower weight classes, use it as the primary way that they get around the guard, because the inversion game for the smaller guys is so good, and the flexibility is there where you're only a lot of times ever going to pass into north-south on a top-level guy because the inversion's there. And so they dive bomb pass through and come around. I just didn't know if anyone listening here has a name.
Yeah, I think it's
specifically for
dive
that pass.
Bomber was what we used to call it, but I don't know if that was a real name or just what we called it.
Dive bomber pass kind of makes sense, but it's not. Looking at it again and watching this match specifically, Baby Shark does it a couple of times. Wisharando uses it, and I realized that everyone uses this pass, especially for the smaller guys, and I don't really have a direct name to call this pass, and I would like a name for it to refer to it on the show so that we have consistency in what we're talking about. But
maybe I'll figure that out if I remember.
Baby Shark, halfway through the match, figures out he probably can't put Jack Sear away on the feet.
Yeah.
Or from the feet, because Jack Sear is content to play guard and has a pretty good guard here. And Baby Shark just repeatedly passes. So in the scoring for Honor Submission Challenge, you had some confusion, and I also had some confusion. It's a 15-minute super fight match.
It is. And I tried to look up the rules, and I couldn't find them anywhere. And when you listen to the announcers or the commentators, commentators, right?
Yeah.
They are discussing points, but there are no points awarded, but there are flags awarded at certain points of the match to say who's winning.
Kind of like what Polaris does, kind of like what Fury does.
Except we're not told that out loud. Unless it's being said in Italian and I don't understand it.
So, like, who's number one? What they do now is they broadcast, if you have a 15-minute match, they break the match up into 3 5-minute periods. Like MMA, they don't break between the matches because this is grappling and that doesn't make sense to do. And then they give, the judges determine, based on whatever criteria that organization is using, who they are favoring leaving that period for that period. So
Fight to Win does that? Who's number one?
No. Who's number one?
Okay.
Does that?
I for whatever, because I was like, Fight to Win stopped doing the flag thing, which kind of annoyed me.
I like the flags.
I like the flags. Okay, anyway.
But they switched to one. They switched to one judge.
Yeah, they switched to one judge.
So Honor, we couldn't tell. So Honor seems to, in the commentary, talked about this a little bit on Honor, and you picked it up specifically that. It is scored kind of like Fury and kind of like MMA scoring, where the person on the bottom, even if you're doing some stuff, you're seen as they call it, disadvantageous position.
Yeah, it's a disadvantageous position.
Yeah,
which
so the top player
confuses me
work.
because that would be MMA scoring, and MMA scoring is different than like IBJJF scoring
because you can punch.
Well,
and you can hit from the top.
because there's reasons why it does that, but so. My understanding, watching what I watched, was that passes and control were like the biggest scoring things, and that even if you got a really deep submission attempt, it really didn't matter as long as the other person had more control.
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of bottom players that were attacking. Top player, all they were doing was not being caught and then passing.
Yeah.
And they were winning. The top
so
player
all the decisions, like pretty much most of the matches here on the main card were that way, where the bottom player had elected to take bottom,
except
was
for
throwing up submissions.
The only one that's not like that is John Tisgracie. John Tisgracie was on the bottom the whole time.
Yeah, but he was more active.
But he had a sweep.
Yes.
He had like 2 sweeps in a row. And that was the only real movement of the match. He never got passed, but he got swept. He swept the other guy twice.
Yeah.
So it is kind of like IBJJF scoring, but
that's what it seemed to be when I was looking at it. I watched the decisions. I went, okay, I think I understand how they're scoring this. They're putting a greater emphasis on positional control, which I don't have a problem with. I think if you're gonna, and this is just sort of a broader discussion, I think if you're going to include submissions as a scoring criteria, you need to have it be a deep submission that, like Fight to Win, like requires defense and requires, I'm going to say, significant defense, where it's like I have to stop, not just like address what you're doing and keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah. I have to completely stop what I am doing, fully address the thing that is happening to me, and then either reset a position or then continue what I am doing from there. And so I'm not exactly sure the criteria that Honor is using, but I think that's sort of more so what they're using. Yeah. Like, submissions aren't really that high of a criteria unless they are astonishingly present and deep. Yeah. Then they may be used as a criteria is what my guess is. Or
maybe if they're equal and they're just kind of playing the top bottom.
Most of what we saw here was top dominant players being dominant on top. Yeah. For the majority of the Super Fight matches, and then those guys were given the win. Diego Hayes, that's how he got the win. I think he passed Jack Sear
multiple times. Towards the end when he turned it up.
I think like 15 or so passes.
Like Diego towards the end was like, fuck this, and just started passing him. Yeah. And he was just passing.
And then he mounted at one point and got to top. He sort of worked for...
Jack Sear did a great job of getting his guard back. I mean, every single time. And he was doing the I don't know what is it when you grab your foot?
Shrimp?
No.
Jailbreak.
He was jailbreaking.
He did it a couple of times.
A bunch of times. And I was like, whoa, he's a bendy man.
We haven't seen a jailbreak. So a jailbreak, if you don't know, is basically someone's inside control on you. And BJ Penn used to do it. Eddie Bravo does it. It's I know BJ Penn for the guy that did it like at the highest levels. He did it in like an MMA fight.
It's generally a 10th Planet thing.
Yeah.
10th Planet, I see.
Or bendy, or super bendy guys use it. It's basically side control. You pull your own leg all the way over and you attach it inside of their hip.
Yeah, you use it as like a wedge.
Yeah, and you push them away, and then you can get back to a butterfly guard. And it's a great technique, and Jack Sear did it repeatedly. I was super impressed with Jack Sear's ability to get Diogo to go, nope, and exit. And so it was a combination of Diogo not being super content on holding the position, because I think tactically he knew he was up and he could afford to try to pass again. Yeah. But also Jack Sears, he was doing enough to get his guard back
Yeah.
and be able to force Diogo to push
And
away from him.
he was trying to attack Diogo the whole time, and Diogo was just going from pass to pass.
I mean,
and he was like
the first 30 seconds of the
sequencing
match.
a shit ton of a bunch of passes over and over and over again.
The
So,
first 30
which we
seconds of the match kind
know.
of set the tone there for Jack Sears' willingness to attack. And again, you went toe-to-toe with an 80cc current champion at under 66 kilograms in Diogo. I'm excited. I hope we see Jack Sear on some other stuff because I'm impressed with his
it looks like
performance
he's
here.
British. I'm
Yeah,
looking
he's
at his
British.
flag. Yeah,
He's British. Union Jack.
So maybe we'll see him on maybe Polaris.
We've seen him on GrappleFest and Polaris. I think we've seen him on GrappleFest before. He may have been also on Polaris on the undercard. I don't recall, but definitely do to watch after this because Diogo Hayes could not put him away. Was able to pass him a lot and took a dominant victory, but very, very impressed with Sears' ability to be able to deal with Baby Shark. So that was the first main card match that we're going to talk about. We also had Thiago Sá defeating Carlos Santos via decision. And then in the under 70 kilogram GP, in the first, you want to talk about that or the Gracie and Negromonte match?
We can go into the GP.
Okay, GP. First match, we had Keith Krikorian defeating Alessio Sanchetti via decision.
Yeah.
What do you want? There's a piece I wanted to talk about in this match. There's a really neat...
Krikorian tried to wrestle a little bit, then he pulled in.
Mm-hmm. There was a neat sequence here in the wrestling where Alessio kind of shoots in on Krikorian.
Oh, he gets a single?
He gets a single leg, and then
Keith is like, fuck it, I'm going to pull guard.
It was a great transitional jiu-jitsu move.
But he went into the legs as soon as
he immediately wraps up and goes to a single leg X off that. So Alessio shoots in, and Keith is kind of standing high up.
Yeah.
Alessio shoots in, kind of does a swing single low.
Yeah.
Drag by, and then Keith immediately realizes he's being taken down. He goes on the head for the collar tie. He pushes away, and then immediately swings the leg on the outside that's not being controlled by Alessio into single leg X, and immediately gets on a heel hook. And I went, that is a super good transition when you know that. And Keith is not a bad wrestler. We know we've seen him wrestle very well.
Yeah.
It was cool to watch him go, I'm getting taken down, and not just have that super hard fight in the wrestling
room. It makes you wonder if he even practiced what to do in the event of this happening.
It seemed like something that was a drilled reaction to getting taken down with a single leg, kind of in this manner. When his hips were low, he immediately pulled, went into the heel hook. And I'm curious, I was thinking about this right before we recorded, how much of that is his preparation for ADCC? Because in ADCC, if you're on a submission within 3 seconds of getting taken down, there are no points scored on you for the takedown. So if Keith can immediately go to a sub here, like very much he pulls almost into a single leg after getting taken down within the 3 seconds, and then works and starts to go towards a heel hook very quickly, pushing him down, passing the leg over, and immediately going for a heel hook. As a judge for ADCC, I would be really hard to score
there's no points there.
Yeah, if he does it within 3 seconds.
Yeah, because then they go into attack, and then he has to try to get out of the heel hook. So I wouldn't give him any points. There's no points
for
there.
ADCC. Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting, and I'm not sure if that was a bug or a feature of Krikorian's game, but it was interesting to see maybe a feature of ADCC kind of creeping into other organizations where, Keith elected to immediately go from a takedown into a submission because in the biggest organization in the world that he competes in, you're not going to get scored on there. So it was a neat little thing, and I really loved that transitional game from Krikorian, and I wish that we saw more grapplers approach transitional sequences like that where, I'm not just going to elect to play guard. I'm going to immediately in this transition elect to fight to my own offense.
Yeah.
And then I think
PJ Barch is another one that does that really well.
But again, another guy who can wrestle really well, but is also a really good and Tonin is the same way.
Yeah.
A lot of those really, really good transitional fighters are the guys that we like to watch the most. And they have that element of their game. And Krikorian, again, we've been covering him for almost 6 years now, is a guy that has built, and Cisneros is a guy that's built those features into their game and made them very, very successful. I
didn't realize that Keith was like semi-local for a while.
Yeah. He was up in Jersey for a while.
Yep. I didn't even know that.
He's Delaware, Jersey.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until
not for a huge amount of time.
Until the seminar happened and he came to Droogs the one time I was there. I didn't realize that because they were like, we used to train with him at Studio, whatever number that was.
Studio 840, I think was the name of the thing.
I don't know. It was
Studio 840.
It was Studio.
It was Jay's place.
Yeah, but then it was it wasn't 840 because 840 is in California.
That's 540.
Oh, maybe it was 840 and then 840 squared. That was the second one, and then they both. Okay.
Yeah.
That was it. They all trained together there.
Yeah,
and
so
I didn't
Keith went
realize
from
that.
San Diego to East Coast for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it was less than a year, and then went back
They
out.
had a really that was a really good room when it was together.
Yeah, it was an amazing room
Yeah.
when it was there. But yeah, he was on the East Coast for a little bit. I was in the middle of back surgery, so I never got a chance to train with him. But
I heard about it, but that was before my days of wanting that kind of heat. So I never went up there.
I loved this match. This was probably the match I had the most fun watching, because it was just both of these guys, Alessio and Krikorian. It was leg shootouts, but it was...
But then they would trade positions. So it wasn't like just two men in 50-50 scissoring.
Yeah, it was really... Alessio would work for a leg lock, Keith would work for a leg lock.
Yeah.
Alessio would work to pass, and then Keith would work for a leg lock. And then really towards the last half of 10 minutes of the match was really Krikorian on top, both passing and also kind of looking for a leg entry for himself or trying to counter Alessio's leg locks. And that was really the match. I think Krikorian very clearly gets this victory here for both. I think he had the stronger attempts and the passing.
The passing and the attempts.
Yeah. And it's really cool to see.
And control in general. He controlled the positions. If you look at the way he was handling it. I mean, Alessio was throwing up quite a lot of, attacks, but it was
that one nice
Krikorian.
omoplata attempt, too, that I thought was really nice. It was a really quick omoplata when Krikorian kind of reached in. Alessio did something we see... Brazilian guy just went against Adam Bordzinski. Felipe Andrew.
Yeah.
Like that really, really nice shoot up and turn the angle for the triangle.
Yeah.
Well, Alessio did that with that omoplata when Keith was kind of reaching in and got long for his reach inside of the guard. We saw Alessio go there. And I enjoyed this match. It was cool to see both guys put up in an opening match of a quarterfinal to put up this kind of offense and pace. And by the end, they were both very, very tired, but it was nice to see both guys really going for it in an opening round like this. Krikorian, I think, very reasonably gets a decision here for position, for submissions, and for kind of match domination, but again, was impressed with Alessio, I think, who is Italian.
Yes.
That's an Italian flag?
That's an Italian flag.
Yeah.
So he's in his home nation.
Mm-hmm. It's always cool to see guys that are not hometown, but home country in Europe having matches with the Americans.
I was also really confused when they brought out the one Gracie guy and started talking to him, like
Charles.
No, right before Jonathan's match, they brought out.
Yeah.
Is it Ralph? Not Ralph. It was whoever.
Half. Was it Half?
It was whoever was. Oh man, Hodger. It was Hodger, and they brought him out, and they brought out a chair, and him and some woman had a whole conversation.
That was neat.
It set me off a little bit.
It was
what
odd
the
timing.
hell is this?
Then they had Hodger. It looked like Hodger was judging as well.
I think so too, but
because he was on a judge's table. I was like, that's Hodger judging.
Or it could have been just Hodger chilling.
Yeah, but Hodger was part of the camp.
He's allegedly he's an ambassador of Honor Grappling.
Yeah.
As I went through trying to find the rules, I found about his ambassadorship.
Yep. So he's been with Honor for
It was
a bit.
definitely different. I don't know.
Next match we had Fabricio Andre defeating Owen Jones via decision. Was this the match that Fabricio hurt his leg, or was that was Krikorian's match?
That's Krikorian. This is Fabricio Andre did a lot of stepping on his legs to pass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of we saw the Bertolos do a couple of years ago.
His normal aggressive style, but Owen keeps on escaping. Every single time Fabricio gets around, he just escapes. But it was a lot of attacks.
This was a lot of that weird range that we see a lot of guys in Nogi play.
Yeah.
And then we'd see Fabricio have success and pass.
Yeah.
And then go to mount or do something from that.
and then Owen would get his guard back. And then I misspoke. We didn't see a lot of attacks until the last minute. The last minute of this match is Owen Jones realizing he's losing, and he just kind of throws the kitchen sink at Fabricio, which is kind of fun to watch, truthfully.
It is really
neat.
He
just attacks, and it's attacking. And you can tell that he's putting everything he can, because he's going after really bad subs and really good subs and attempts at this and inverting and then comes up and then go. Yeah, it's, I don't know.
It was neat. Again, I wish this was a little, not odd, it was a little slower paced than I would have liked to see for the majority of the matches. For the 15-minute matches, it's kind of hard.
I would have liked to see the pacing of the end more, but not. Yeah. But you can't do that for 15 minutes.
And also for two 15-minute matches, when you have when you have Krikorian after that, and a Krikorian, a guy that can keep a pace, even if Krikorian's being a little bigger now, guy we know can really keep a heavy pace. But again, this is another match where very clearly Fabricio Andrade takes this.
And he takes it by passing.
Yeah, he just passes repeatedly.
Passes to mount.
Kind of in the same way that Diogo earlier in the night had taken his match, where it was
and
like,
that's why,
he just
that's why I was
dominated.
getting confused, because those gentlemen weren't really going after a lot of subs, but they were winning from positional wins. Mm-hmm. And the guys on the bottom were definitely throwing up more subs. But, that wasn't the criteria for said event.
I like that, too. I like that the submission attempts were good, but I think you saw very little required defense from Baby Shark or Fabricio.
Oh, yeah.
Like they were like, okay, that's a sub, that's a position being established that I'm going to have to address, and they were passing or doing something positional to avoid needing to address it. Fabricio takes it. He moves on in the tournament. Let me not stop the recording and click the keyboard. Next match, let's talk about the finals. Fabricio Andrade takes on Keith Krikorian, beats him by decision. This was a match. This was a fun match. In about, would you say, about 5.5 minutes, and you should at the 9:22-minute mark of the match, I think is where your notes have it as.
Which is a 15-minute match, so we would say seven, right?
No. 15-minute match. It's at 9:22, so it's 5:40 into the match.
5:40.
I can't be the math person.
I can't do math.
Here. So yeah, about a third of the match, we see Keith go for it's not a false reap. He goes.
No, it's a false reap.
Yeah,
it's a false reap, and then he tries to throw it. He throws his top leg over, right? Like he's going to go under.
Like he's going to go saddle or something like that.
Yeah, and then then Fabricio keeps on addressing that leg, and he puts the leg back, and the leg comes over again, and Fabricio does like a running man
and pushes down the leg and gets out, and then
he just kind of stands.
You see immediately Fabricio is kind of screwing with his leg, really not his leg, like his quad and his hip joint.
Yeah.
Specifically, we watched it a couple of times.
Like a hip flexor.
He's just touching and kind of poking, like whenever you get a cramp, and we couldn't tell on the commentary, couldn't tell, like, is his leg cramped? Is it not?
Yeah.
We watched the sequence where this happens a couple of times and went, okay, he's probably not getting hurt. He's not subbing him.
Yeah,
he's not in a Z-lock position.
There's no Z-lock. There's no hip. I don't know how you would hurt your hip in that position, because there wasn't really any hip involvement.
Yeah. So our guess is that it was just a freak sprain or
could be something that
tear.
He's had for a while, and just
a freak thing happened.
Yeah.
And then that really changed the tone of, and not the tone necessarily, but the way in which Fabricio was passing and addressing Krikorian's guard.
But he did push through, and it wasn't like he was favoring the leg, the good leg, but he was still like going pretty ham.
We watched this on the pre-show, and you pointed out a couple of different times where you went, okay, watch him pass here, where he would, and Fabricio we know does a lot of like jumping Toriano style passes and a lot of flat passing over top of that top shield knee. We saw a bunch of times, and you pointed out like 3 separate times where Fabricio, instead of traditionally, he does his big Hokage thing where he'll stomp the leg down, and he will sort of flat pass over your knee.
I wonder if he
do that.
fucked up his hip doing that.
So I know a guy in MMA, so one of my old gyms, that was the thing he used to do. He used to stomp the cage when they got in. I knew a guy that twisted his ankle doing that, walking into a cage for a fight. And so we know that Hokage tends to do that when he steps over. He'll stomp both his legs down to establish his base and then immediately go to turn you again.
And he was not doing that.
He wasn't doing it at all. He would kind of gingerly land with the first one, and then he likes to pass to that leg, to the injured leg first. We'd see him kind of gently step onto it and then evenly step with his other leg to mitigate some of the force coming into that
if you
foot.
watch his body placement, he was putting his body placement over his good leg. So it wasn't like your normal him just landing, and he also wasn't like landing and attacking, because normally like when he lands he moves immediately as he lands. This
he was kind of
more
establishing a little bit. He slowed his pace down
Yeah.
pretty considerably, and you saw him less willing to kind of leverage his balance and be willing to play off both legs.
Because then you saw Keith Krikorian go like, blood in the water. I will go after this leg now.
And so Keith, I don't think it was an injury that happened that Keith had caused in that, or Keith had intentionally caused in that sequence based on the sub he was doing, because when Fabricio like pulled out and like kind of reset, and they gave him like 15 seconds to sort of like get his leg back, and Keith kind of looked at it and went, is the referee let this happen? Okay. I think had Krikorian been the one to cause that injury intentionally, he would have had made a little more of a stink to like cause, hey, he needs a break, like I've injured him. But Krikorian, and there was a couple of times in the match where he kind of gave Fabricio a second to like stretch his leg out and work, and then come
at the
back
very
in.
end he helps him up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that Keith's an upstanding dude, but I also think had Krikorian been the one that caused that injury in something that he was doing intentionally, he probably would have pushed for like a submission there. But because he didn't and wasn't doing that, could be Keith being a nice guy.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't doing that, I'm guessing that it was just a freak injury or like sprain or strain or cramp even that had happened during the match. But because of how he was favoring it so greatly or not favoring that leg so greatly, I'm guessing it wasn't like a cramp. He like pulled something or got a stinger or something had happened. But it really was, it was odd to watch. And as soon as we picked up on it and rewatched it, that's all I could focus on. And as a guy that had a back injury with a bunch of sciatic nerve pain, I can see someone favor a leg. Yeah. And I know exactly what that feels like. I was like, okay, he's favoring that. You can see, I did it for years and years and years myself. So I can watch someone and immediately know exactly how they've changed their weight placement because you just get attuned to that over years of dealing with a back injury. So again, Fabricio Andrade, he still, even with that, passes.
He passes him a few times. And I don't know if that's Keith not caring about the passing, like not wanting to put up too much of a fight for it.
Because Krikorian is such a good leg locker.
You know what I mean? That he just doesn't like, he's like, okay, you passed my guard. I'm gonna get my guard back, and not really caring about his guard being passed.
I couldn't tell if it was,
or if he was just tired. Because this is the second match, and his last match was
he had a tough first match. I just couldn't tell when he would pass. If it was something like Krikorian was looking for an opening from the pass, and then he's like, okay, I know I can retain my guard on Fabricio, so I'm not really as worried about it. I think I'm going to get, because he was progressing well into the legs, both in his first match and in the match with Fabricio Andrade, and then Fabricio changed, after he hurt his leg, he changed the distance that he was engaging Keith's guard with to be a little further back, and we saw Krikorian able to have a little less success because he had to sit up more into Fabricio in order to engage him in the guard. And so Fabricio takes it. Great passing work. Again, it's fun. I love watching both these guys go at it. I wish that we would have seen this. I wish we would have seen a score maybe on the board. That would have been nice, I think, as a viewer, because the decisions, I think all the decisions here are correct. Yeah. But I just like to be able to see something.
They had flags, and once you knew the flags were in the background and you looked at the judges' table, you could point them out, but the flags were black and white. So in the dark, it was kind of hard to see them.
Yeah, I wish that was a little more clear.
And I only realized they were there because they were talking about it, and they were like, oh, he's got 2 flags. And I'm like, oh, there are flags back there. And I started being a weirdo and like watching the background rather than watching the match itself.
Put it in an overlay so we can see it as the viewer, especially if it's going to be part of the judging criteria. Just it makes it easier to follow. But overall, I think everything went the way it should have. I just would have loved to see maybe a little more push for progression in the passes, because that was kind of a hallmark of the event. You would pass, and then we wouldn't see any progression. We saw a couple movements to mount, and that was it. We didn't see a single back take in
no, we didn't.
Like the entire main card. I don't think we did.
No, we basically saw a very similar match for all of them.
Yeah, it was a weird deja vu. Again, good event. Yeah. It was just a weird deja vu to be like, man, there's something about the way that all of these guys have elected to approach their opponent.
It also could have just been how they were matched. You had one bottom player, one top player.
Yeah, and somebody was happy to take the bottom, somebody was happy to take the top. Which I kind of like in matchmaking, where you don't have 30 minutes or 10 minutes of guys fighting to not be top player, not be bottom player. So that was good.
And then we move on to the main event.
Jonatas Gracie defeats Charles Negrodamonte via decision.
If somebody can tell me if Jonatas Gracie is Australian, they said it on the actual show.
Even though we said this in the pre-show. Yeah. Even though his flag is Brazilian and he was born in Brazil.
He was born in Brazil. Yeah. I can't find this anywhere, but the commentator with the Australian accent kept on saying that he was an Australian and that he was rooting for him. So I was trying to figure this shit out.
I thought he was at Atos in San Diego.
I did too.
Maybe he's in Australia now.
I don't know.
So if you have information on that, let us know, because Miranda, because I want to text Miranda and let her know, like, yeah, she is Australian. Didn't know that.
Or like, Miranda, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Not Australian.
This is the weird shit.
You didn't just dream it up though. You did hear.
No, this is the weird shit that I pay attention to when I watch matches. So. Anyway.
This was, you talked about it again in the pre-show. This was some of the most activity that we've seen from Jonatas Gracie.
It was.
In a bit.
Yeah. It was a lot of him attacking feet. and it was a lot more attacking than I had ever seen out of him.
He didn't have the big ass knee brace either.
True.
So that was what I was.
He was in like
about.
a pastel color. It was very interesting.
That's usually what he wears. That's usually his rash guard kit. Is that lighter pastel color that's shorter. In the past like 2 years, we've always seen him with that. It's not really a bulky knee brace, but it's a heavy knee brace on one knee.
Yeah.
The thing I noticed here was he didn't have that, and he was going hard for the legs.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that injury has healed itself now, and we're gonna see maybe that was what was preventing him from being confident enough to like throw the level of offense that he was throwing. Because here, 2 times again, you said 2 different sweeps on Charles Negromonte, and when the times he was on the bottom, really wrapped up in the legs for good stretches of the match. And I wasn't sure if that was a tactical decision he was making because he knew that he was probably more proficient than Charles Negromonte in the legs, or if that was something that he was doing to set up sweeps.
The other thing I did notice is like he was actually small compared to Negromonte.
Negromonte's a big dude.
Like he was small, and so on the wrestling exchanges, Negromonte could grab his head and just put his face to the mat. Yeah. And so a couple of the times you realize like Jontas would try to stand, and then he would be like, I don't need this, and he would pull. Yeah. Or he'd get taken down and just go into whatever he was doing, getting taken down. But he did not want to stand in this match at all.
Yeah. Again, but he plays it well, and the 2 sweeps and the sustained
attacks
offense. I think the other thing that seals it for Gracie was that Negromonte never really got any passes through. Like in the other matches we saw on this card, the winner was passing or getting close passes, or usually actually passing.
They all passed.
They all passed. Yeah. Charles Negromonte was never able to get his knee inside forward enough of Jontas Gracie's guard.
Would get the fuck out whenever it happens, or he would stand up like that. I think that was the 2 times that he actually like stood with like a single on Negromonte,
or to stop a pass,
or was to stop a pass,
which I think tactically is a great decision to make.
IBJJF wise, that's how you stop pass points.
But again, and tactically, I think it was a great decision to make. But he was active. That was the main event. Jontas Gracie takes that via unanimous decision. Do you have any other pieces for the card, or any other matches that we have here?
It was fun to watch a card from another country. Yeah. Though I would like to know the rules a little bit better, and or get some kind of English translation so I know what they're talking about, because I had no idea what was going on.
I did enjoy the
music,
the walkouts in their languages.
The music was wild too. Like between matches, like when they would win, they would play like all kinds of crazy like almost opera kind of music.
I loved the Granite theater, the Granite Quarry advertisement we got in the card.
Did you also? Oh yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah, we got a couple Granite Quarry.
We got that.
We have the finest quarry marble that we've ever seen, and 2 hectares of plant. I was like, this is like, I want a marble countertop now.
I have a marble countertop at home. I know. It's pretty wild.
Rachel and I were talking about getting stone countertops.
You can get them secondhand, like not secondhand, but you can get the seconds. That's the one I have. It's really nice.
And that's what I want to get.
The only problem that happens from it is if you're someone who drops shit, you break all your glasses. Because you can't drop a glass on your countertop.
Hey, it happened. I grew up with stone. I grew up with stone countertops, and this house doesn't have one.
Yeah, I fucking break every single glass and every single bowl in my house.
I love, and a lot of European organizations do it. They actually have they do what you're supposed to do and get sponsors, and it's always cool to see local sponsors.
And it was a car company that I had no idea. Like it was a wild car. There was like this boxy looking truck. I was like, dude, I want to go on a safari now.
Yeah. It was cool. Again, I love when grappling organizations from other countries and even U.S. grappling organizations go and get local sponsors for their events. It just makes it feel like an actual sport where it's you're watching a sport.
And guess what? They didn't do what Flow normally does and put it on at the same time as a match.
That was amazing.
I don't know how they did that.
I didn't get the match interrupted by a commercial. It was after the match where it's supposed to be. So I love Honor Submission Challenge. I love that it's in Italy. I love that the next one's going to be in Dubai. Should be a great card, and I'm very, very much looking forward to the next one. Let's move on to GrappleFest 16. Had a couple of technical difficulties with this card. You bought it, and then we waited a week. The replay expired, and so we don't have access to take more notes. So we're going to talk about just some of the matches that we do have notes on.
Yeah, I watched some of it. I had the understanding, well, first of all, you could only play it on whatever you bought it from, or you hit the link when you initially hit the link, whatever
device
you had, you couldn't put it anywhere else. That kind of screwed me over. And then
because you bought it on your phone.
Because I bought it on my phone
and then went to buy
as
it
I was
on the
eating my
computer.
poke bowl, because I was watching it as I ate my poke bowl, and I thought when I got home I could just turn it off and turn my screen on and put
Behind
it
the
to my
curtain.
screen.
We do this a lot. Like,
Yeah.
I have watched most events, actually most events over the years. I will start on the phone or on the TV or on the computer.
When you're walking around and you're somewhere else, you start it there.
I'll watch
and
it
then
because
you're
the main
like,
card.
sometimes I'm watching the undercard as I drive home. Not really watching it, but listening to it
Yeah.
as I drive home. And then like when
I get home, I throw it up on the big
Yeah.
screen and take my notes and do my stuff. So it is very. I didn't realize until that happened to you that I was like, oh, we do this for almost every card, unless we're in a place where we're going to sit down and watch the whole card in one go.
I've sat in Buffalo Wild Wings before and had the fights. The one Christmas party, we had the fights on my phone, or we had the matches on my phone as we're watching the fights in the UFC as we're in a Christmas party.
When GrappleFest first went over to Fight TV, Rachel was at a doctor's appointment late. It was a late, 8 o'clock doctor's appointment for a thing, and I went to like a pub next door, bought Fight TV, and watched GrappleFest while she waited to get into this appointment.
It's not unfortunately. It's kind of the weirdness of us that we just watch these things all over the place.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we couldn't do that.
I was eating a poke bowl and I was trying to watch this. And then I realized I couldn't watch it somewhere else. And then I was falling asleep because it was after training and I'd eaten. My belly was full. And then I tried to watch it again and it wouldn't let me because I only bought the live feed.
Yeah.
So
let's run through some results. Let's start with Jack Grant defeats Taylor Perlman via decision. Mark McQueen defeats James Thompson via Renica choke. Nadine Tavares defeats Peyton Letcher via
and
decision.
the other thing is, I don't know what happened to the PJ Barch match.
Yeah, it's not on here.
Yeah. And I kept on looking to see if I could figure out when it was taken away. Don't know.
Daniel DeGroot, who is a guy that I think we're going to see more of, defeats Tommy Yip via decision. Adele Fornaro. I'm sorry about that. Defeats Vanessa English and becomes the under 60 kilogram GrappleFest champion.
Adele was getting her ass beat for a while in that match. Like she was definitely. I did not.
And had to pull it out at the end.
Yeah, I did not see her winning that match. It was. And maybe because Vanessa English had a big Gracie Baja like rash guard on, and she had her back. But I think Adele was trying to go into the legs, and Vanessa just had her back. And like I was like, oh, Adele isn't going to win this one. And then that was where I snoozed for a little bit, and then I woke up and she won.
In the end of this, Adele has a really, really nice sequence and end up in top position. Ends up working toward a head and arm at the end of the match. I think that's like what sealed it for. She had to pick up the pace, and then. Ends the match in that top-down position working for the head and arm.
And we've seen her before.
Mm-hmm. I think and we'll see her again as the GrappleFest under 60 kilogram champion. So let's talk about let's talk about the Gabriel Souza and Damian Anderson match, and we'll end with William Tackett and Bradley Hill. So this is a match, we didn't talk about it last week. This is actually a rematch. So Gabriel Souza and Damian Anderson went against each other at Emerald City Invitational. Mm-hmm. In commentary talked about it, and I love that they did this because they were knowledgeable commentators.
But they were like a little local tournament. They called it like a small local or something like that. And I was like, what the fuck, man?
I'm pretty sure that Emerald City Invitational was a crazy stacked tournament.
Yeah.
Again, you have Gabriel Souza and Damian Anderson.
It's also local to us, and we knew people in it, so maybe that's why we thought it was crazy and big stack.
So Damian Anderson had a heel hook win over Gabriel Souza at that tournament in regulation in the regular time for that tournament. And so this was a rematch. Gabriel Souza had not forgotten that.
Nope. Not at all.
I was, again, impressed with the speed that I think these guys, I think this was match of the night or fight of the night. I
think so too. Yeah.
These guys put up some speed, and that's why we love Gabriel Souza and Damian Anderson. Whenever they're
Gabriel
on Toro
Souza also,
who's number one.
I've watched him a bunch of matches turn it on. Like he goes from being like beat, because like Damian was really winning a lot of the exchanges up to like the end, and Gabriel Souza's like, nah, fuck you, and just like.
There was one sequence they have on Instagram that I thought was a really cool sequence. Damian had
it was the final sequence of the match.
Damian had like a slide by to get to Gabriel's back, and Souza and Damian was about to kind of lift and sort of take him down or swing him back, and Souza does what we figured out, what we kind of are going to call basically a standing Granby roll. Kind of like what Gary Tonin was doing to Wagner Hoshin at ADCC a couple years ago.
You kind of just reach back and kind of throw him over your head. It's a hip throw. Yeah. But it's a hip throw when somebody's behind you, but you have like control of their head and shoulder, basically.
It's an overhook head throw from them behind you.
I don't remember if he had an overhook or not. Or
he didn't. He just sort of Granby rolled, and Damien had a good enough body lock that he tried to roll with him and take the back off of it. And then Souza was able, as they landed, to turn his hips over and end up in side control on Damien Anderson. I'm like, that is a hell of a way to transition out of someone about to either suplex you, because Anderson tries to jump the back on Souza here, and Souza's able to turn a guy jumping your back into top side control.
Souza also, when Damien got to his back, Souza put his hands on the mat, which then made Damien jump onto his back. And I think he kind of preemptively...
He went to like a 4-point almost.
Yeah, he kind of preemptively did it a little quick, I think. And I think that allowed Souza to kind of get the positioning that he needed to kind of chuck him. And then he lands on top, and it was like Gabriel was just going to stay on top and mount him, and got into almost a head and arm choke at the end.
He was definitely working towards it at the end. But again, Gabriel Souza takes this via decision. Any other pieces in the match that you want to run through?
No, I was surprised that Damien put a lot of work into this match.
Yeah.
Like, I really thought he was going to win until that ending sequence. Like, he really was putting it on him for a while.
It was close. Again, the first match was fun. This match is fun as well. I like the pace that Anderson puts on guys, and I like that Gabriel Souza, we've seen him do it for years now. He will like almost not play possum is the right word. He'll kind of feel you out, but he'll do it in a way where he'll still kind of jab at you, and then he'll kick it into the next gear and just try to run at that pace. And a lot of times he can just blow guys out from those pace changes.
Yeah.
I think he pace changes at this weight class probably better than almost anyone in the sport.
I've also seen him like go from losing to winning in like 5 seconds in so many matches.
Yeah.
Like he has this ability to almost like not give up. Like when even if he's like behind the 8 ball, somehow he's just pushes through, which is great.
Which is neat. The contrast between Souza, kind of like the change in sliding scale of pace versus Anderson's pretty consistent heavy pace that he's going to put on you and kind of try to break you.
Yeah.
It's cool. It was cool to see Souza not get broken by that.
And it was also good to see that Gabriel's worked on his leg defense, because Damien did go into his legs and he was like, nah, and just kept on getting out.
I think partially ADCC also part of that for
I think
Souza as well.
Part of it is also he's training with JT now.
Oh yeah, I forgot him and Fionn now. They're together. So that whole group.
It seems to be they're together.
It looks like they're together from an outside perspective. But they're all training at Essential with JT Torres, and you're gonna get anything that you need. You're probably gonna get from Torres in that gym, and so that showed here. Again, I would love to watch these guys fight again. Souza takes it, so now they're 1-1. Another great rivalry for the guys in the smaller divisions. Let's talk about not the main event. Let's talk about what was the highlight reel submission of the weekend, or technically last weekend. William Taggart defeats Bradley Hill via standing Ezekiel choke.
Yeah, it was an Ezekiel. I mean, it was like a punch Ezekiel.
I thought the hand was all the way through.
Was it all the way through?
It looked like
did
it
he
was deep.
punch? Okay. I couldn't figure out if he was punching him or if he had the hand through. But either way, it's an Ezekiel.
Two things.
Standing.
How fucking strong is William Tackett from the core up? And Bradley Hill was able to stand up with him in there and still wasn't able to pry him off.
What was surprising also was at GrappleFest you can slam.
You can slam?
You can slam, because I read this whole conversation in which they were discussing slamming, and at GrappleFest you can slam, but you can't hit him on his head.
You can't spike.
You can't spike.
Yeah.
So I think the thought process was like if he could somehow slam himself out. But I think if you try to slam yourself out in Ezekiel, your head might pop off.
That's not. Yeah. No. If there's any sub that I might not want to slam out of, the Ezekiel is you're face to face with the guy. So it's like if you hit down, you're both gonna get headbutted by the other guy. It's gonna your heads are already touching.
You might accidentally kiss him.
Yeah, you might.
It might be a kiss.
That might be fine too. But I was just in watching this ending sequence of Tackett locking the guard or locking locking the position. Bradley Hill standing up as Tackett has this overhook on the head and has threaded it through. Like, we do not see. That's some Alexia Olenek shit. If you don't know who Alexei Olenek is,
Some crazy
old school Russian MMA fighter, just recently left the UFC.
Do you like my spelling of Ezekiel? I couldn't spell it.
I can't spell it either. And our good friend and co-host Simon has a kid with the name.
Oh, he does have a kid with that name.
So I need to spell it.
Okay.
So I was just astonished that that's like something that we see at heavyweight that Olenek can hit. We very rarely
so off
see
with my spelling.
Tackett.
So
like a guy like Tackett is so strong, to be able to lock up, get underneath, and slide through in the top. It is such a rare submission to see.
I mean, I guess you would
at this level.
You would have to slam him as soon as he grabbed. As soon as he got up and grabbed like the one arm around your head, you would have to go for it. And it would just have to be one of those like, if I get headbutted, I get headbutted.
Yeah.
Let's see what the fuck happens.
Yeah. I was super impressed with Tackett here. Tackett, we know is good. We know is very good. You do not win West Coast trials for ADCC if you're not very, very good. Did he win? Yeah, he won. Yeah, he won West Coast trials. I was just very impressed to see him hit a sub like this on Bradley Hill.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a common sub. It's not an easy sub.
It's a very random thing.
And we'll be able to,
I can't think of the last time I've seen anybody get Ezekiel choked from standing.
I can't recall ever in a black belt match.
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't a
in
purple
MMA
belt,
we
black
have
belt.
we have that one Russian dude that does Ezekiel.
Alexei Olenek.
From the bottom.
He does it from bottom mount sometimes.
Yeah.
And he's done it there.
Okay.
But he's also...
I don't know his freaking name. Sorry.
Alexei Olenek. Yeah.
Okay.
He has I think he has 9 or 12 wins by Ezekiel
Yeah.
in MMA. He has a scarf hold win over Crow Cop.
Yeah, he
has a crazy squeeze. That is the level of squeeze that you need to finish this like this, and Tackett did. That's why, again, I don't have a ton of words and a ton of description for like the sub finish, because it's such an uncommon finish, and you have to hold yourself up by your own. You have to hold yourself up on their body
by legs,
by your legs only, because your arm is committed to being to pushing against your own leverage to hold you up. So wild sub. We've known William Tackett is good. We know William Tackett is good. This, again, is another data point to point to that. Would love to see Tackett fight for a title on GrappleFest. It would be exciting. We'd love to see Souza fight.
He's going to fight Keith.
Hell yeah.
It says he has to take on Keith later this year.
That'll be awesome. So Gabriel Souza and Keith, I think that's a rematch as well.
I believe so too.
That should be.
I'm sure they've won against each other.
That should be super fun. But I would love to see Tackett take on. I forget who the 70 or 80 kilogram champion is for GrappleFest.
I just saw it. I just looked at it.
And it's gonna kill me.
Talk and I'll.
Because I think Ash Williams is the 70 kilogram champion for GrappleFest, and so that's who I want to see the winner of Souza and Krikorian take on. Because the Krikorian and Ash match, I will watch that to the end of the earth. Like, that match was one of the best matches we've seen on GrappleFest ever. So I'd love to see that. I'd love to see GrappleFest bringing back their champions to defend their belts. So that will be a ton of fun.
They had a whole post where they had all their champions, and I looked at it because I was like, I wanted to see who their champions were, and I completely do not know the answer.
Time for another day. So we got one match coming up. That's all I got for GrappleFest. Hopefully we can get the card together again so we can have the video for future. We have one match coming up this weekend on Stout Fight. We got in Pittsburgh.
It's actually not. It's called Sprawl in the Brawl. Sprawl in the
Brawl.
Well, Sprawl in the Berg. I'm looking it up.
Okay.
Give me a second.
So PJ Barch.
I have a couple friends on it. So.
All right. So PJ Barch.
Yeah.
Is taking on
Dante Leon.
Is this match? It's not at 55 because I don't think Barch can't make 55. I assume. So I assume Leon's going up in weight for this match.
Probably.
But we've seen Dante fight from 55 all the way up to...
It is Sprawl in the Berg.
Sprawl in the Berg.
And it is at the Monroeville Convention Center. And it doesn't say... Yeah, it doesn't say what the weight. Class. I'm assuming it has to be 77 because...
I assume either 170, welterweight probably.
Yeah.
Is what my guess would be.
He looks a little big, but that's also a Dante Leon. It's not the greatest picture.
Yeah. But Leon, we also saw him at 55, and he looked absolutely shredded on who's number one. So him being 15 pounds heavier and having the same physique wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
So, who do you go on this one? I know you're a huge PJ Barch fan, so I probably can't.
But I'm also.
Unbiased.
But my other problem is I'm a huge. Is I like Dante Leon a lot, and I met him, and he's really nice, and he. they've went against each other a bunch of times because I remember them being a match at Nogi Worlds that I watched before we got prepared for people at East Coast Trials. They were the matches that I watched because that was the weight class to worry about.
Yeah.
And it was the two of them went against each other, and they would just switch back and forth, and then it was a pretty equal match.
Yeah.
And I think both of them, I think PJ's gotten a lot better since then. I think that
PJ's still coming off that injury. So remember, he got injured at West Coast Trials a couple years ago. He rehabbed it. He healed up. And we've seen him just consistently make improvements and changes to his game. Dante's also gotten a lot better as well, but the types of improvements that Dante has made to his game have been
considerable. Because I've seen his whole game change.
Yeah.
Because if you watch him prior to the trials, and then you watch him at trials,
Barch or Dante?
If I'm talking about Barch.
Okay.
If you watch him before trials, and you watch him at trials, and you watch him after trials, there's a big difference in the way he moves.
And then you watch him at ADCC, like, beat JT Torres.
Yeah.
And then he has to fight Cade Rucolo. He's winning parts of that Cade Rucolo match, who then becomes the champion. I think this is a tough hill for Dante to climb, especially if Dante had been committing to go down to 55. Him then coming back up in weight.
But he didn't want to.
He didn't want to, but he had committed to because there were better matches he'd kind of faced, and this is a rematch for Barch. He's already faced Barch. I love Dante. Dante's one of my favorite guys to watch and my favorite grapplers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to go with that in mind, go with Barch here because I keep thinking back to the three matches that always cement it for PJ.
Yeah, if this is I have to agree with you.
I think that Barch, I've been really impressed with Dante's wrestling. Again, the Mika Gavao match was impressive. I think that Barch is probably a slightly better wrestler. He's a longer wrestler, and I think that he will be have similar speed to Dante.
Yeah.
But he will be longer and able to get to Dante a little faster with the reach. So I think there's a physical attribute there that assists Barch. I think that Barch's match with JT Torres, so he's going to be able to get Dante down, or Dante's going to happily elect to play bottom position because we know Dante's amazing on the bottom. Barch's passing is only getting better and better and better. I think Dante has an amazing guard. You can look at his match at Nogi Worlds a couple years ago when he won his first world title against Johnny Tama. I'm blanking on who he was in the finals with. He was a teammate, and they fought anyway. I interviewed Dante at Kasai a couple years ago, and we talked about the match in that interview, and I'm blanking on who he was against in the match. But that match, we saw Dante has an amazing ability to retain his guard at multiple ranges and avoid being scored on. I think that they are very similarly talented in the leg locks, so I don't think either one has a big advantage there.
Yeah, and I think they both will kind of play whatever position they need to play.
Yeah.
Like one will gladly take bottom and play bottom, and one, and if there's if that changes, if one of them, like if PJ decides, no, I want to play top, and it becomes just a wrestling match of the two of them, then I probably would say Dante over. I think Dante might be able to
edge the wrestling out?
Yeah.
This is a fun one.
Like, he's in Ohio.
Yeah.
So he has all the wrestling prospects galore to practice with.
I was just so impressed with PJ's ability to deal with JT Torres. And I keep going, and Cade Rucolo. Like, those two matches for me are such standout performances from Barch that I refuse to overlook until someone gives me a reason to. Dante could be the guy to do that, but I just think that PJ can take this unless we see Dante elect to play bottom and his wrestle up game he's able to leverage his wrestle up game on Barch, because I think that's one thing that he has on Barch. I think Barch has a great ability to sweep, but I think Dante is a better guard player, and we've recently seen a lot more of his really quick wrestle ups. And I think that's an area where he could trouble Barch, put Barch on the bottom, and then we see Dante's passing and control. I see avenues for both guys. It really depends on how they elect to approach the match. I really want to pick Dante, but I think that I'm gonna sadness edge on my end and pick Barch here. Yeah, just based on those two amazing ADCC performances.
Yeah, I think since the way I've watched PJ get better since ADCC, I think Not saying that
Dante also hasn't made improvements.
Also hasn't done it too, because I watched him at Noogie Worlds and he was doing all kinds of crazy shit. So, yeah, I'm gonna go PJ Barch. Not happily. Whichever one wins, I'll be happy with.
Yeah. Again, it's a great match. I'm super happy they're putting it on. I probably cannot drive up to Pittsburgh this week, but
I'm reffing in Jersey, so there's no way.
No way you can go to Pittsburgh.
I'm not doing Jersey to Pittsburgh. Like that's not happening.
A bridge too far.
I could do a train, but I'm not that committed.
Yeah. All right. So you got anything else?
I don't think so.
All right. As always on the show, I'm your host, Mange, my co-host.
Miranda.
And we're the Grappling Reruns to the map. What it is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.